Good afternoon and welcome to Jazz Vespers. We will get into introductions a little later on. It is dark outside, so saying afternoon's kind of odd. And then when I was presented with the set list today, and the first song that will be played in a matter of seconds is Imagination, I thought, well, what a perfect opportunity to talk about darkness. I have a dark imagination. I have a dark sense of humor. And I revel in darkness. Now that the clocks are set back and we have darkness earlier on, I want to remind everybody that all that's before you, absolutely everything before you, started as darkness. In the beginning, there was just darkness, and everything came from it. So maybe it's good to revel in the darkness and see the potential there. Our first song, Imagination. For those who don't know me, I'm Martel. I am the senior pastor here. Tonight with us we have Pete, who you all know and love and adore. Adore? A love. Okay, good. Yes, say thank you. Ian, whose mother lives in the city, but lives in the city, New York, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And Zechariah. The next song is Autumn in New York, and for those of us who've had the opportunity to live in New York, can really revel in this song. The canyons of steel, they make you feel at home. I love that line. But the one that fits most perfectly is the last one about lovers in the dark. I don't know if it's wooing in Central Park, but something like that on that level. And the darkness is a great background in New York for all things that are bright and beautiful, for Broadway lights and for glimmering buildings and for lovers in the park. Gotta love the dark. when Pete handed me the set list and I said something about darkness, he said, the next song, Emily, is going to be hard to fit into darkness. So I go to my favorite Emily, and I'm going to read one of Emily Dickinson's poems. How's that for a stretch? But it works. We grow accustomed to the dark when light is put away, as when the neighbor holds the lamp to witness her goodbye. A moment, we uncertain step for newness of the night, then fit our vision to the dark and meet the road erect. The next song is Lullaby of the Leaves. I'm going to tell you a little long story. It speaks a lot about my family's sense of humor. My mother's birthday is November 12th. Your mother's birthday is November 7th. And my mother proudly states that the leaves always fall by her birthday. And when we were kids, we would remind her that they always fall by Jesus' birthday too, so what's the big difference? But she never seemed to appreciate that. Well, in our backyard, we had this huge willow oak. Are you familiar with willow oaks? They're oak trees, but their leaves are about yay long and thin. And they're a bear to rake. I mean, they constantly fall through the rake. And so my brothers and I hated raking that tree. So when one of the other trees went down, the three of us, three elders, plotted to get a different tree other than my mom's favorite willow oak. So we talked her into another oak tree. But this oak tree had big leaves that would turn brown and not fall until spring. So it was a twofer. We get to remind our mother that all leaves don't fall by your birthday, sweetheart, and that we didn't have to rake until spring. I'm a big fan of the New Yorker magazine, and the best part of it is not the writing, it's the comics, right? You know, they're brilliant, and they're dark, and they're totally twisted, and they have a competition. You can actually write in, and I've actually been written back and told that my comments have been too dark, just so you know, they actually do that. But now one of them that I still remember, being a crunchy granola lover of all things green, there was one comment that said something to the effect of, "Oh, I do not have a carbon footprint. I drive my gas guzzler everywhere." That is brilliant humor. Dark and brilliant. What? You didn't get it? I don't have a carbon footprint. I drive my gas guzzler everywhere. Isn't it? Yeah. If you want some really good dark humor, New Yorker magazine, and they have it online. And they should pay me for saying that. If you're watching New Yorker magazine.
They also have it on Libby's through the public library.
Oh, very cool. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to have a little blue room, right? Dark blue room. Is that navy or indigo? Thomas Hardy wrote a poem called The Darkling Thrush, and if we take it on one level, it's actually a very hopeful, beautiful poem. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead in a full-hearted evensong of joy unlimited. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small, with blast bereft plume, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. The poem goes on to talk about this thrush, post-Christmas, pre-New Year's, ushering in hopefulness for the new year. And that's on the outer layer of this poem. But when you read the poem more deeply, and you come from a tradition of evening prayer, of night prayer actually, it is laden with theology, and it's laden with the idea of wondering if theology and the study and church going and all that stuff is dying. And the voices of hope, although loud, are old and frail. And it's so wonderful for me to realize that we're in a time where we think that what we're going through is new and different, and it's not. Darkness has always loomed. Voices of joy they've always sung, and yet there's always a new year after year, time after time. The beauty of darkness is that, in this type of poetry, is it allows us to imagine things that are better and brighter, and to not wade into the darkness too much, to know that for millions of years before you, and hopefully millions to come, we've been debating the same issues. Our next song is It Never Entered My Mind. The next song actually brings up a linguistic, socially, and political debate in my head. Do you know why? Okay, so the word itself is an ethnic slur that was in Italian and that I was never allowed to say. Okay. Like, I'm looking at this word going, I can't say this in public or my grandmother's going to come out of her grave and haunt me. And it's a derogatory term for a Romani. So, yeah. I have no idea what it means in Portuguese. Oh, yeah, it's derogatory in Italian. Oops. So you can say it if you want. And most of these people don't even know that, but I can't say it. But the question is, so if something is derogatory in a language, what is our freedom to speak it? You're all wondering what the song is now, right? It actually is worse than gypsies, just so you, in the Italian. But anyway, that's the idea, except it's a derogatory comment. It's a beautiful song, though. Yeah. It's all yours. I'm not touching this one with the 10-foot pole. One of the most read mystical writers is John the Cross, and he writes this incredibly beautiful poem called Dark Night of the Soul. And it's mostly misinterpreted. The dark night of the soul is actually an ascent toward God. And when you peel away everything that usually brings us closer to God, beauty and music and all that stuff, when you finally peel that away and you find in the darkness this one relationship that is sustaining and eternal, you have made it through the dark night of the soul. It's not a bad thing. And most of us think of it almost in a 21st century way of like insomnia, which is entirely different, where you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't figure out if you are sane or not sane, and that darkness just drives you even crazier because you can't get to sleep. So that's how we tend to think of the dark night of the soul with John the Cross. But it's not. It's not that at all. It's finding truth without all of the extra layers. And it's very, very smallest common denominator, and that's darkness. So when you wake up at 3 in the morning and you are wondering about why you're awake and angry because you can't fall asleep, maybe it's a perfect time to follow the way of John the Cross and find God there in the darkness without all the extras. Dark Night of the Soul. Must read. You're laughing at me, John. Why?
Luminous darkness.
Luminous darkness. John will give a dissertation on that after I'm finished. How's that? It's true. Sippin' Bells? Miles Davis, right?
Miles Davis.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
I think Bells was a nightclub.
Okay. When I'm in the farm, I look up at the sky, and you can't help but see the Milky Way. You can't help but see all these stars and the moon. And as a child, I used to look up at the sky and look for the brightest star, or the one that was most red, or the one that sparkled blue, or the one that twinkled the most. As I've gotten older, I play a different game when I'm at the farm at nighttime. I look up the sky and I try to see the darkness between the stars, and I can't. Try as I want. Your eyes are just pulled, they just pull to the light. So if you ever want to give yourself some mental gymnastic, go to a place that's really, really lacking in ambient light and look up at the sky, and through that incredible Milky Way and those incredible galaxies, try to find some darkness. I have a couple announcements before we go. Announcement number one, thank you to our musicians. Zachariah, thank you as always. You always make me sound good. I really don't sound like this in real life, so thank you. Thanksgiving Jazz Vespers in 2 weeks. So next week, we have Peg Delaney, whom we all love. And then on the Sunday, November 19th, we have Thanksgiving Jazz Vespers. They start at 4 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, they're featuring Wayne Hawkins on the piano trio, Dave, Cliff, and then at 5 o'clock, we have Steve Lambert on trumpet, Dave Fisk, Max Kaplan, Nathan, and Mike. So next week, we have Peg and Bill and Steve and Tim, and then the following week, we have Thanksgiving Jazz Vespers. Are we throwing an extra one in just in case? Do we have one? Well, I couldn't find a book yet. Okay. So our before we go, we have collection box out there. If you'd like to support Jazz Vespers, it's self-supporting. Please do so. Thank you for the delicious food as always, Marjorie. Thank you very much. She's up there. You can turn and wave. Thank you to everybody who tunes in. Pleasure having you. And our last piece for the evening, and then.